Live from Myrtle Beach, it's the 7th Congressional District Republican Primary Debate. Brought to you by the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce and by the Grand Strand Business Alliance. Please welcome tonight's moderator, former CNN senior White House correspondent, and now Dean of the College of Mass Communications and Information Studies at the University of South Carolina, Mr. Charles Bierbauer.
Welcome to the South Carolina 7th Congressional District Candidate Debate. Tonight we'll be meeting the Republican candidates for this new seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. Let me very briefly introduce them to you. She resides in Murrells Inlet, a chemist, a businesswoman, a sales professional, Renee Culler. A resident of Myrtle Beach working in the real estate land sales business, he has also served on the Myrtle Beach City Council since 2002, Randall Wallace. Residing in North Myrtle Beach and a captain in the U.S. Army Reserve, she has served as a U.S. Congressional Field Representative for South Carolina's 1st District and a Commissioner for the North Myrtle Beach Planning Commission, Catherine Jenneret. A tax attorney who resides in Myrtle Beach and is also the current chairman of the Horry County Council, Tom Rice. A resident of Myrtle Beach and the former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, as well as a former member of the South Carolina Senate and House of Representatives, Andre Bauer. A resident of Murrells Inlet, where he's a business owner. He is also the former director of the South Carolina Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, as well as the former chairman of Horry County Council, Chad Prosser. A resident of Florence and practicing law in the PD area, also a small business owner and former chairman of the Florence County Election Commission and Voter Registration Board, Jay Jordan. A resident of Pawleys Island and the owner of his own landscape management company, Jim Mader. And a Surfside Beach resident and retired naval officer and business owner, Dick Withington. This debate will last for an hour and a half, so we will be moving at a brisk pace with a variety of questions and times allotted for responses. I ask the candidates in the audience to keep that in mind. In some cases, the questions will be for all of the candidates. In some cases, each candidate will be asked an individual question. I have the responsibility of cutting you off if you exceed your time limit. Watch the red light carefully. During certain segments, if one candidate is challenged or mentioned substantively, I'll allow a 30-second rebuttal, but you have to raise your hand to ask for it. Now, joining me to question tonight's candidates are WPDE news anchor Tim McGinnis, WMBF news anchor Michael Maley, and Valerie Borline, who covers regional politics and economics for the Wall Street Journal and was formerly a State House correspondent for the state newspaper in Columbia. Candidates, your first question, and this will be for all of you. Dollars don't always equate to votes. There are historical examples of that, but it's a measure of commitment and engagement. So would you tell us in a dollar amount only how much you've raised or put into this race so far? Ms. Culler.
Around $20,000.
Mr. Wallace.
I've raised 14 and loaned myself 9.
Ms. Jenneret.
Well, why some people have been in this race for quite a bit of time, since November of last year. I just recently got into the race 8 weeks ago because I was serving in Afghanistan. But meanwhile, I did put in $10,000 of my own money and raised another $2,600.
Mr. Rice.
I've raised about $480,000 and put in about $50,000 of my own money. My money raised from people all around the district.
Mr. Bauer.
$550,000.
Mr. Prosser.
$430,000.
Mr. Jordan.
A little over $370,000, I believe.
Mr. Mader.
10,000 American dollars.
Mr. Withington.
A little over 20,000.
Okay, thank you. For this next round of questions, each candidate will have 30 seconds to respond. No rebuttals in this round. These will be individual questions. Tim.
This question is for Tom Rice. You were elected to serve a 4-year term as Horry County Council Chairman. At one point, you told me you would finish your term and not run for another office. So why would you leave without serving your full term?
Well, good question, Tim, and I appreciate you asking it. When I decided to run for Chairman of County Council, this office didn't exist. And I have truly enjoyed my tenure at Horry County Council. When the office came about, some good friends here approached me and said, you know, we think with your talent, you can really help the nation, you can really help this district. We hope you'll consider it. After prayerful consideration with my wife, we decided we would plow ahead.
And this question is for Mr. Bauer. Mr. Bauer, in 2010, you attracted national attention when you compared welfare recipients to stray animals. Do you stand by what you said?
Well, Valerie, I'm glad you asked the question because I really didn't compare them. The news media did that, which is what they love to do. Instead of addressing a question of more and more people on dependency systems, which we all know we have, and we have a food stamp president right now, I tried to address a question that most Republicans know has become a big burden on our economy and on our country, and we're going to have to address more and more people on dependency systems. We got to try to find a way to lift them up, not hold them down.
This question's for Chad Prosser. Mr. Prosser, in 2009, when you headed the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, a senior state lawmaker had said that you didn't keep regular hours and insinuated that you didn't work enough. In fact, and I quote, they jokingly suggested PRT suggested it stood for Prosser rarely there. How would you respond to this?
You know, it's always interesting when someone comes up with a clever abbreviation, but the fact is that's the way they think in Columbia. And if we had more people in Columbia that got away from their desks and actually got out in the field, you would probably see the same type of results that I experienced when I led the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, where we turned around the financially ailing state park service and made it one of the most efficient state park services in the nation. Quite frankly, if the legislature in Columbia spent less time there and more time in their districts, we'd be a whole lot better off.
Great answer. This next question is for Catherine Jeanneret. You're an active member of the Army Reserve and you recently returned from a tour in Afghanistan. If you're elected, do you think you'll have the time to represent the district?
Absolutely. There's no reason for me not to. For a case in point, Senator Lindsey Graham is also in the Air National Guard and does his time and is during his duty and make sure that his 2 weeks out of the year is actually done during a recess in Congress. Actually, in reality, me being in the reserve will get me closer actually to the troops and understand what they need and what they want, because usually a 3-star general is doing a dog and pony show for congressmen and they don't really know what's going on. Being a captain in the United States Army Reserve, I have the ability to observe personally what's going on in the armed forces.
This question is for Jay Jordan. Mr. Jordan, you're 32 years old and you're the youngest candidate on stage. You haven't held elected office. What makes you qualified to represent the 7th District?
I think my lack of political experience is one of the best things about me. You only need to look at the edge of the cliff that we stand on and look at who took us there. It's the politicians with experience that led us to the edge of that cliff. If we're going to turn away and move away from that cliff we're on, we're going to be led there not by the people with the experience that took us there, but we're going to be led there by people that believe politics is not a place to get rich, not to build or continue a career, but an opportunity to serve. And the second thing is we have a delegation right now serving us well in South Carolina on the Republican side, and we shouldn't forget that many of those individuals are freshmen themselves.
Next question's for Randall Wallace. Randall, you served on Myrtle Beach City Council, of course, for over a decade. With your tenure on council and the fact that you live in Horry County, can you represent and understand the interests of people who live in the PD?
Oh, yes. I am the only candidate on the stage that worked very, very hard to get this district drawn to include the PD. And the reason why is not only have I served in Myrtle Beach, my entire family is from Darlington County in Hartsville. And when I used to spend the summers over there with my grandparents, I've seen the folks struggle in that part of the world, in Darlington, Marlboro, Chesterfield, struggle even when times were good in Horry County and across the state of South Carolina and across the United States. And if I have the opportunity to serve as your congressman, One of the things I want to do is bring economic prosperity to those folks. I'll be there, unlike other congresspeople, I'll be there fighting for you every day that you allow me to be there.
For Renee Collar, you moved to Georgetown from Texas recently. What is your connection to the district? How well do you know the area, and can you represent the area?
I can represent it very well. I grew up in Carvers Bay in Georgetown County. My grandfather was a tobacco farmer. We had a place at the beach, and we've lived in Murrells Inlet, which means I understand both sides of the waterway. And if you want a congressman that can represent the whole district, you need someone that has lived on both sides, that understand what both parties need. And I'm the candidate for that job.
Mr. Withington, this question's for you. Earlier this spring, you were running for 3 offices at the same time, for the State House, the State Senate, and then for this seat. You're one of many candidates who are removed from the ballot for the state races because of not meeting filing deadlines. Why were you running for so many seats at the same time?
It was just a simple matter that you spend $20,000 running for this seat, and you're an underdog and perhaps a long shot. And I thought for an additional $600 and an additional $200, it would be okay to run against 2 people that I know and respect, but they were both 8-year incumbents who had never been challenged. But that's irrelevant now. The important thing right now is to get somebody in Congress that has some abilities, and the ability particularly to relate to the leaders in the House, and I think I'll be able to do that.
Next question is for Jim Mader. Mr. Mader, you're unknown to most voters, a landscaper who spent many years in retail as well. Have you developed the name recognition critical to win this race?
Short answer is we're going to find out Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock until 7 p.m. to find out if I develop name recognition. Unfortunately, right now, I don't have all my signs up. Signs are going up all over the county. They look beautiful, by the way, very scenic. So, got the name up here tonight. So, do I have the total name recognition? No, I don't, but venues like this give me the opportunity to meet the public, to talk to the public, let them get to know me, and so they can make the right choice this Tuesday.
Candidates, thank you all for that round. Our next round of questioning will begin right after this break. Two-minute break. Yes.
I can't hear. I barely heard your question. I can't hear the questions. It's difficult to hear.
Welcome back. We now move on to Grand Street. Okay.
Go ahead and just count to 10.
10. Okay.
How about Hard Rock? Okay. Sweet. Want to go somewhere after the debate?
Welcome back. We're going to move on now to some questions about the Grand Strand and the PD. In this round, candidates will have 1 minute to respond. If one should mention another, it's not obligatory, we'll have an opportunity for rebuttal. As we're under strict time limits, we do try and get as many of these questions in as we can. Valerie?
Mr. Bauer, some counties in the PD have the highest level of unemployment in the state. What specifically can you do to create jobs for the people in this district, and why is your plan better than your opponents?
Well, first off, I'm a business owner. I came to this district when I actually was lieutenant governor. I bought a home in this district, planned on moving here when I got out of state government, and immediately I got involved in the business community. Bought out a closing business, opened up another one. We've employed over 100 people. But as your lieutenant governor, I traveled the state and the country and the world trying to get economic development. When Nanya Plastics had problems, I was there to work with them. When Nucor Steel had problems, I went to Washington and fought for them for the steel tariffs that were hurting their business. I've been there time and time again. I've talked about the need for an intermodal port. I've talked about the need for more free trade zones. We've got to reduce taxes. We need to make the Bush tax cuts permanent. We need to eliminate the capital gains tax. We need to do everything we can. I would say rapid depreciation on any equipment bought for a business owner. We've got to encourage business owners to want to spend money to make investment and to hire new people.
And Mr. Rice, you promised to bring new jobs to Horry County when you were elected chairman in 2010.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry. You promised to bring new jobs to Horry County when you were elected chairman in 2010. But since you've been elected, there have only been 2 small announcements, both by companies that were already here. What is your plan to create jobs for the district, and how is it better than your opponents?
Well, you're right, I ran on jobs, and when I came into Horry County Council, our economic development was at a dead standstill. And in 9 months, we had produced an average of 106 jobs in Horry County for the last 3 years, where Charleston, Columbia, Greenville were producing 1,300. We funded a plan in July. Since January, we've created 350 jobs. I'm very proud of that. We've already tripled the job production in Horry County. And we've got a number of very good prospects in the wings. I promise you by the end of this year, it'll be over 500 jobs created in Horry County from this new plan. Nationwide, this is, I think, one of our top issues. And we have sat here as a nation and watched American jobs go overseas for decades. And it's caused because we're not competitive, we're not business friendly. Highest corporate tax rates in the world, highest red tape government regulation. If we want to have jobs come back on shore, if we want to re-employ those millions of American jobs that have gone offshore, we've got to make ourselves competitive.
Mr. Prosser. Mr. Prosser, same question. What is your plan to bring jobs to the district, and how is it superior to your opponents?
Well, my perspective is a little different. First of all, the federal government does not create jobs. The federal government taxes when it creates government jobs, but that's not how true sustainable economic recovery and job growth happens. It happens by business owners investing and having a hospitable environment for business growth. We do that first and foremost by getting control of the out-of-control deficit spending, paying down the national debt, because when we have a looming cloud of tax increases, we have additional regulations like Obamacare putting burdens and uncertainty on businesses, you will not see economic growth. To have true long-term economic growth, the federal government needs to get out of the way. And I differ from many of my opponents here on the stage in that I do not believe that the federal government plays a role. Increasing the budget for an economic development agency, quadrupling it in order to buy jobs, that's not the approach that I would take in Washington.
Mr. Jordan, give us your plan on jobs and how it differs. Again, your plan, Mr. Jordan, on jobs and how it differs from your opponents.
Thank you. First of all, I would echo a couple things. First off, and Chad said it pretty well, I think, be careful when politicians talk about creating jobs. If they're talking about it, it's probably a bureaucracy, and that's the last thing we need to increase right now in where we are as a country. But there are some things we can do. The first thing I think the federal government can do a much better job is all we have is uncertainty coming out of Washington. The federal government has an obligation to do everything they can to encourage job creation. They do a better job of discouraging job creation. We forget in this country, 7 out of 10 jobs created are small business jobs. I see it all over the district. The federal government does a better job of getting in the way than they do in helping. We need to start listening to the people that are living under the regulations. When we talk about getting rid of government and business regulations, we need to be listening to the people that those regulations apply to and figure out what are the things that we can help them with. Go into these businesses and say, what are the things the federal government is doing that stop you from growing your business, that stop you from hiring new people to work in your business? Only then, when we start listening to the people that are under those regulations, the people that actually create those jobs, the small business owners, then we'll see some job creation.
Thank you. We're going to take a break at this point. We will be back with a lightning round of questions in a moment. Welcome back to the South Carolina 7th Congressional District Candidate Debate, sponsored by the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce and the Grand Strand Business Alliance. A couple of quick questions in a lightning round here. I'm just going to ask for your responses. In the first one, really just a show of hands would help us to get a couple of points here. A term, if you're not familiar with, you would be in Washington, it's earmarks. So with a show of hands, who among you is against earmarks? Against earmarks.
Yes.
Are any hands for those who might not be against earmarks? Okay.
Get your hand up, Joe.
Now, the second question. How many of you support construction of I-73, which, as I understand it, has only been funded with earmarks and state revenues?
No.
That's a...
Well, I've got, I think, 7 hands up there and 1 thumbs down and an abstention here. This is
you only fund it with the earmarks?
I'm saying that currently there are no federal funds involved in this, and the earmarks are the way it's been done.
Y'all pay for it.
I'm opposed to earmarks, but I've been running on a merit-based appropriation system. We need to do something so we can continue to invest in our infrastructure in this country because it's vitally important. And I-73 is a vitally important project. So is the Southern Evacuation Lifeline.
Well, I knew earmarks was like opening a can of worms. Mr. Prosser, go ahead, and then I'm just... All right. If you get to Washington, watch out for the earmarks. Michael.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, 15 seconds here or less. What are your top 3 federal programs you would cut should you be elected? And let's start with Dick Withington.
Top 3 federal programs that I would cut. Medicare can be cut. The military can be cut. Yes, it can. We spend 16 times more than the next 16 countries. We could cut it plenty, believe me. Yeah, okay, those two.
Thank you.
I've been in the military, I know what I'm talking about, you don't.
Thank you.
Mr. Jim Mader. Jim Mader, your top 3 programs you would cut should you be elected?
Be the Energy Department, would be the Energy Department, Education, and Commerce.
Jay Jordan?
Mine would be the same, energy, education, and commerce.
Energy, education, and commerce. Mr. Chad Prosser?
I would cut the hundreds of millions that we spend on Planned Parenthood. I would cut the 30 czars that have developed because federal agencies aren't effective. And I would privatize the Transportation Security Administration.
Andre Bauer.
The top 3 would be HUD, energy, education, but I'd go on to transportation, IRS, Fannie Mae, NPR, drastically in 4 and 8, czars.
Mr. Tom Rice.
Folks, it's this bad. We're taking in $2.2 trillion a year. We're spending $1.9 trillion a year on mandatory spending, which is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We're spending $300 billion on interest. If we cut every federal program outside of those, we'd still have a deficit.
Amen.
But the top 3 I would say would be Obamacare, education, and energy.
Catherine Generette.
Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution clearly states what Congress is supposed to be mandating. It's supposed to be taking care of infrastructure, commerce, the post office, and the Department of Defense. Anything else needs to go.
Brandon Wallace.
Government needs a review top to bottom. Ronald Reagan said there's a bunch of departments that we've gotten into that we have no business doing. We'd eliminate education, HUD, commerce, commerce, HUD, energy, and education. Plus, I think we need to go through a whole bunch of departments and figure out what the government should not be doing, that the state should be doing, and cut all that too, because we got to get this under control.
Renee Culler.
Department of Education, get rid of the IRS, and get rid of any department that gives entitlements to illegal aliens.
This next question is about an issue that's affected a lot of Grand Strand business owners. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, businesses with pools are now required to have permanent pool lifts installed, yet some businesses say portable pool lifts are safer, more cost-efficient, and more effective. We have several hotels and rental properties in the 7th District that have to comply with the new regulation. Do you support this type of legislation? You have 15 seconds to answer. We're going to start with Renee Culler.
No, I do not. We have too many regulations right now. That's the problem with our government. That's why I'm the one that can go up there and bring jobs back, because I actually have worked in industry with a hard hat and steel-toe shoes. So I understand regulations on the side of industry and keeping industries in compliance.
Randall Wallace?
Absolutely not. We've got too many regulations, and you know stupid when you hear it. We have regulations that say you have to sprinkle a swimming pool, an indoor swimming pool. And I can tell you right now, I'm not swimming in a pool that you can catch on fire. We've got a fishing industry that's about to be put out of business based on best available data. That is a guess. You have no business. We need to go through all the government regulations and slice as many of them out, the ones that don't make sense. And like I said, you know stupid when you hear it.
Catherine Generette.
I would not support it, and the reason being is there's too much regulations that are not mandated. I mean, they're mandated by Congress, but then they're not paid for. They're not paying for these mandates. Someone at the end of that regulation has to end up paying for it out of their pocket, and I say no.
Tom Rice.
Another great example of federal overreach. We need to take a meat cleaver to these regulations. We're stifling business. We're running it overseas. My good friend Steve Chapman, I saw him out there earlier, has a couple of hotels with more than one pool. They're requiring him to put a fixed lift on every single water feature. That is a ridiculous overreach. I want handicapped people to have access, but a portable lift is just fine.
Andre Bauer.
I absolutely don't support this. This is the type of reason, this is what motivates me to run for office. This is what I get frustrated about when I start businesses. These are the exact things we're going through them right now in a business I'm open here locally. These are the kind of things that choke business down and make it so that people don't open new businesses.
Chad Prosser.
I oppose it. This is an example where good intentions, once they go through the federal system, become something that's absolutely ridiculous and burdensome to business. This is what's keeping our economy from growing. We absolutely need to fight against these types of regulations. In addition to the liability that it brings to businesses, it's another reason we need tort reform.
Jay Jordan.
Absolutely against it. This is a good example of the federal government trying to do something it thinks is a good idea and going about it all the wrong way and putting, instead of encouraging job creation and business growth, it's discouraging it. Be very, very careful, folks. When the federal government says, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, run the other way.
Jim Mader.
I actually talked with an ADA attorney, and he's read the bill, read the law, and basically he said that the portable lifts are sufficient, and I support the portable lifts, but mandating that every single pool have a permanent lift in place, no. Support the overreach of the federal government.
Dick Withington.
My philosophy is that the government should be in the recommending business and not the regulating business. And I would do away with all pool regulations in the way
Welcome back. In this segment, candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question. If you can do it in less, we'll love you for it. Valerie?
This question concerns I-73. The I-73 corridor is a popular plan here, with about 70% of the people we polled for this debate saying they were in favor, and in fact, many of you are in favor. But many of you have also said that you oppose earmarks and want to avoid raising taxes. So the question becomes, how do you pay for it? And could we start with Mr. Bauer?
Absolutely. I think you've got to have a creative business person. Number one, we shouldn't be a donor state anymore. I'm tired of paying for roads out west. Well, money collected in gas taxes needs to stay in South Carolina. Number two, we ought to get creative and say to the landowner, how about let us take 20 years to pay you? Instead of taking one lump sum, take it over 20 years, we'll charge you no income tax off of it, and you charge us no financing for doing it. Immediately, we don't have that capital expenditure. We can spend the money on the asphalt, on the engineering. And then lastly, I'd say we spend billions of dollars on rest areas. Water bill, power bill, keeping the grass cut. Let's privatize those. Let Chick-fil-A, Burger King, McDonald's open up in there. Let them pay the water bill. Let them keep those up. And instead of having billions of dollars going out, we'll have billions of dollars coming in that we can directly spend on building better roads. And lastly, I wouldn't build another road in another country till we can pay for the roads in this country.
Mr. Rice, same question, how to pay for I-73?
Well, infrastructure is not going to be built with earmarks anymore, and that's good for South Carolina. We'll never compete with states with a lot bigger populations and a lot more clout in the earmark system. Everything needs to be based on merit. But people, Congress has recognized the merit of I-73. They did it over 20 years ago. It's been one of the top federal highway projects for over 20 years. And what's happened? Nothing. This district needs a strong advocate. That's how I made my living. That's what I'm doing for you right now on Horry County Council, and that's what I'll do for you when you name me as your congressman. And one other thing. Under current law, a landowner doesn't have to pay taxes on a condemnation if he reinvested in another piece of land anyway. So the federal government's already fallen out.
Mr. Prosser, same question.
First of all, I support Senator Jim DeMint's proposal to bring all gas tax back here and end South Carolina being a donor state so that we're not paying for bridges to nowhere in places like Alaska that gets 429% back return on every dollar that they pay in the federal gas tax. Secondly, I believe a merit-based appropriation system is appropriate. It's something very simple. It's something that we did here in Horry County when we paved over 700 miles of dirt roads. We changed a system that had been in place politically for a number of years, and we made it work based on merit and based on objective criteria. And I do have to correct one thing. Federal law actually prohibits within the federal right-of-way any private business. When I was head of PRT, we actually leased out the 2 state welcome centers to private entities, but those were the ones outside of federal right-of-way. I would support a change to the federal law to enable a public-private partnership, however.
A recent report came out that said the Social Security system will be dead, gone by 2033. What would you do to repair it? Let's start with Mr. Tom Rice. Social Security, gone by 2033. How do you repair it?
Right. I think we're going to have to look at a comprehensive plan. There are several plans out there, like, for example, Paul Ryan's plan, the Pathway to Prosperity. There is the Bowles-Simpson plan. They all deal with entitlement reform, which that's going to have to be done. Things like means testing for high-income people, things like delaying retirement for people who are a little further away from Social Security, and individual accounts for people who are younger. Also, there's going to have to be tax reform. If we're going to be competitive worldwide, we're going to have to drop the rates, do a flat tax, just like Reagan did when he came in. We're going to have to cut government regulation to be competitive worldwide, and we're going to have to put caps on spending. That's the only way we're going to get a hold of this deficit and make Social Security and these other plans sustainable.
Andre Bauer.
Hey, I filed to run for Congress, and I'd like a chance to answer a question. You skipped the most important conversation with 5 candidates over job creation in this district. You've skipped us on I-73, and I can speak loud in this microphone, so don't even worry about cutting it off.
Mr. Wallace, we'll get...
Not right. Actually, not 5 candidates out here. And I mean, I appreciate being here. They knocked me out Monday in Florence, Marion, and this is not right what's going on tonight.
Question was addressed to
First off, people under the age of 50... First off, people under the age of 50, we need to look at it. Extending the age before you collect benefits by a few years, that would directly affect me, people like that. Secondly, if you look in the 50s, people retired at an average age of 68. Nowadays, their average age is in the low 60s, but they're living 20 years longer. We've got to encourage our workforce to stay in the workforce longer. You do that by eliminating the payroll tax. Let people collect more, let them continue to get a paycheck, don't make them pay taxes on it, therefore they're not collecting those benefits. We're going to have to get creative and do things like that.
We're going to take a short break now, and we'll move on to some health care questions when we get back. Thank you. Welcome back to the South Carolina 7th Congressional District Republican primary debate, sponsored by the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce and the Grand Strand Business Alliance. In this segment, we'll discuss health care. Candidates will give you 1 minute to respond. If you can do it shorter, we'll get more people in. As I said at the beginning, not all questions would be addressed to all candidates, and we were trying to mix up and get a variety here. So, Tim.
This question came from a News Channel 15 viewer. This year in South Carolina, close to 10,000 people will be diagnosed with cancer, many who are unable to afford treatment. As an advocate, the person who wrote the question in, for the American Cancer Society, our organization would like to know, if the Affordable Care Act is repealed, how would you make insurance coverage available and affordable for people who get sick or have pre-existing conditions like cancer? This is for Jay Jordan.
Thank you. First, we have to recognize that we do have a problem with our healthcare system as it stands today. The issue is Obamacare is absolutely the wrong way to go about fixing it. What you're going to see is what it intends to accomplish is to have more people under health care, and what you're going to do is it's going to have the exact opposite effect. It's going to have less people with health care and more people without jobs, and people without jobs don't usually have health care either. So that's the wrong way to do it. In Congress, Republicans at least up in Congress, are trying to do some things. A few members at least themselves are trying to do some of those things. We're going to have to lower the cost. The way we lower the cost and begin that process is we tear down state lines for insurance companies so they can compete. So people have more choices and that lowers costs. The second thing we have to do is we have to be easier on our doctors. Doctors do better when they have more time with their patients. I spoke with a doctor the other day in Hartsville. He spends 27 minutes out of every hour when it's a government patient dealing with paperwork. We've got to let doctors spend more time with patients and less time with paperwork so they can drive down costs. Those are some things we can actually do to have an effect.
Andre Bauer.
I was actually the only candidate that actually went to Washington when Obamacare was being held by the United States Supreme Court. I went up there and fought and was a voice and tried to be vocal about stopping it. I can tell you we're going to have tort reform. There should be a copay for anybody that walks in an ER of a few dollars, so you discourage people that are abusing the system. Look, you and I, we pay for it. Other people go in there as a primary care physician because they don't. They have no skin in the game. It doesn't deter them to walk into the most expensive health care there is. We've got to get them into a primary care physician. We need more competition. We need to be able to buy across state lines. We've got to deter making it so that doctors have to always cover their tail in everything they do. We have got a system now where more and more people are looking to win the lottery when they walk in a doctor's office.
Tom Rice. Tom Rice.
I think we've got a wonderful healthcare system in this country, and I am scared to death of the thought of the government tinkering with it. It seems the government can't run many things as well as private enterprise can. Increased competition among medical care providers and insurance companies, let them compete across state lines, as he said. Tort reform, let's get the doctors out of practicing defensive medicine. Had an interesting conversation with Bruce Bailey, a friend of mine, CEO of Georgetown County Hospital System. He said, you know, the way to fix this is if we can figure out a way to compensate physicians for keeping people well rather than just treating them when they're sick. Absolutely. So we're going to have some innovative ideas if we're going to fix this problem, because it is a massive problem. Again, just the entitlement plans, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, all these things, $1.9 trillion, interest, $300 billion, you've got a deficit right there before you fund any other federal department, including the Treasury, including the Department of Defense. We cannot fix the deficit unless we fix this problem.
Thank you.
We're going to get a chance.
Chad Prosser.
Well, first of all, we need to repeal Obamacare. It's a bill that has done nothing to address affordability of health care, and it has raised rates for insurance. It has not made insurance more affordable. Even parts that have been implemented, like the pre-existing conditions for children, that exclusion has nearly doubled family coverage and coverage for children. I see it in my own business with my employees who can no longer afford coverage for their children. We need to approach it from two angles. First of all, from the supplier side, we need to provide incentives for medical professionals to manage to outcomes instead of being based on their compensation being based purely on procedures. And from the patient standpoint, we need to allow free market competition so that patients are able to make informed decisions, economic decisions about the health care that they're providing, and they're able to make those decisions in conjunction with their physician, with their health care provider, and not be told by the federal government what to do. Obamacare will put 17 million people onto Medicaid and take 3 million off of private insurance.
Thank you.
Another healthcare question. If you look across this district, you have areas where more than a quarter of children and half of adults have health coverage through Medicaid. Many of you have said you want to roll back the president's health care plan, but then again, Medicaid is widely viewed as unsustainable. I want to ask what you would put in place to make sure the people of this district have access to health care. And I want to start with Ms. Jenrette, please.
Well, there's far too many regulations in place to allow that to happen. Medicaid is between Medicaid and Medicare is 22% of our national budget. And people are going to need somewhere to go to have care. However, the FDA needs to be reformed. Pharmaceutical firms need to pony up. Medicaid, Medicare needs a rehaul because there's money there. It's just being squandered and abused and wasted. I had a friend who called me. She's on Medicare. She called me and said she had to get a respiratory something or rather for her cold, and they gave her some $250 apparatus that had nothing to do with just treating her cold. And when she called the Medicare hotline, fraud hotline, they absolutely disregarded her. So that $3,000 a year to rent a wheelchair when you can buy one. It's ridiculous. It needs to be overhauled.
Thank you.
Mr. Wallace.
I think federal Medicaid, we need to block grant the money that goes to the states so they can deal with the Medicaid problem, the issue that they're dealing with. But I'd like to answer this question about health care. We were talking about a minute ago. The Republicans had a plan in Congress called Associated Health Plans. That would have provided thousands of mom and pop workers in restaurant businesses, beachwear businesses, businesses all across the country that would have then had access to health care, and it was a great plan as opposed to what the Obama folks were trying to do last year. That's something we can implement right now if this comes out and put people and give people affordable access to health care, get premiums down, along with providing competition across the board with different health insurance companies and getting the lawyers out of it and stopping all these frivolous lawsuits with tort reform. And people would have access to health care and we wouldn't have to socialize 1/7 of the economy at all.
Now you can pay no attention to the red light because it won't turn off, please.
And Ms. Culler. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with our government, and it's our media, because we have the same opportunity to be up here speaking to you as what they consider the top 4 runners. Let me tell you how these polls work. They want to call over 600 people, 35% are undecided, and they're going to allow 400 people to decide who the top runners are for over 700,000 people in this district. That's a bunch of bull. And until the people get up and they stand up and they face the media and they face the people that say we're the front runners, you're never going to have a voice in Congress, the government, or anywhere else.
We're out of time for this segment. We'll be back.
Only 8 minutes to 9. We'll get another point on the
Hey, I just want.
Welcome back. Before we begin this next round of questions, I'd like to thank Brad Dean and the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce, and also Mike Wooten with the Grand Strand Business Alliance for sponsoring this debate. These are organizations that have been instrumental in promoting business and jobs in the area, and that leads us to Valerie's next question.
Thank you. This is a question about local hiring for your campaigns. Some of you have had pieces of mail printed outside the district and have had ads produced in Washington or in Columbia rather than here. With 1 minute to respond, Mr. Bauer, have your print, radio, and TV ads been produced by companies in the 7th District, and why or why not?
Some have been produced in the district, some haven't. I first and foremost look for where I can get the best value, best buy, and so I haven't spent a whole lot of money, but the money I've spent, I've been very judicious in trying to find whoever cut me the best price, which is what I expect what you want me to do as your congressman.
Mr. Rice, same question.
Again, some of the people I've hired have been in the district, some have been outside the district. I try to be a good steward of the money of the people who contribute to me, and I, again, hope you will want me to do that when I'm your congressman.
And Mr. Prosser.
All of my printing and all of my mail has been done here in Horry County. In fact, the two gentlemen that when I ran the first time for chairman of Horry County Council started a small copy shop in downtown Conway now have a major printing facility in Conway. It's a real small business success story. They've done work for me over the years. They've done all of the work for my campaign. And it's those types of businesses that we need to be supporting to grow the local economy. They have grown. They started here. They graduated from Coastal Carolina University, and now they have a thriving business.
Michael.
Got a question now from one of our WMBF News viewers. She writes, "It's cheaper for me to buy a bag of chips than it is to buy locally grown yellow squash to feed my son. Farming has until recently been vital to our state's GDP. If elected, would you work to end big government subsidies to big government funded farms and give local and regional growers a fair chance to the market?" You've got 1 minute to respond. Let's start with Mr. Rice.
Yes, I would. I would try to remove the government from farm subsidies. I think private enterprise is capitalism is the most efficient allocator of capital, and I think government intervention is, and I think government intervention skews that.
Chad Prosser. Chad Prosser, the same question.
Yes, I would. I think ethanol subsidies, corporate agriculture, that is not good for the American economy. We don't need that type of government intervention in agriculture or in any segment of our economy. All that does is distort the free market and brings federal government spending in a place where it absolutely should not be.
You don't fight overseas and you get cut off. What kind of free speech, First Amendment rights do we have here?
Let's
Especially for our viewers. It's not so much for us candidates to say.
I yield my time to Ms. Jenrette.
It's for the viewers that are sitting at home, and you guys need to hear from all of us, because that's the American way.
Michael, would you continue with your questioning, please, Michael?
Same question to you, Mr. Bauer.
Mr. Bauer.
I'm not sure I want to answer it even. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have is we have people that call themselves farmers traveling to Washington on corporate jets and asking for farm subsidies. If you wonder why Coca-Cola doesn't have sugar anymore, that's why. It has corn syrup in it now. What we see happening to the American diet is tremendous. It is harming our people. But the excuse to say that I can only buy some cheap, highly manufactured food, I think is wrong. There are plenty of things you can buy and still eat healthy. I think people find excuses, and you got to look hard. I work very hard at it. You can grow your own garden. There are a lot of things, if you walk around the edge of the grocery store, that you can find that are healthy options to buying bad foods. But we're going to have to make those tough decisions. Sometimes they don't taste so good, and so people don't want to do them. But the answer to the big question is should the U.S. government continue to subsidize big corporate farms? And absolutely not.
If I have the chance, I'm going to ask
Tim,
on the
please.
Agriculture Committee so I can do
Mr.
something
Wallace,
to help
thank
the
you.
family farm.
Please-
My
please-
family owns one.
Thank you, Mr.
Please
Wallace.
bear with me here, because I know this statement's not going to be real popular, but this next question is for Andre Bauer only. But there's a good reason for it. There's a good reason for it. Okay. Mr. Bauer, a News Channel 15 viewer asks, when did you officially establish residence here, and was it for the purpose of running for this seat? If not, what prompted the move? Was it a job here locally? Do you have any other ties to the area?
I have lots of ties. As your lieutenant governor, I was here almost every week. I had the Office on Aging here every week. We actually at Spring Maid Beach every year had the White House Conference on Aging. I was at your senior centers. And in November, when I was getting ready to leave the lieutenant governor's office, I actually bought a home here. And so that office, this wasn't even drawn as a district. It bothers me that political opponents and the media want to continue to drive it. Because quite frankly, I could live on Mars and do a better job than most of the people are doing in Washington right now. But I will tell you, I
You mean
came
as
here.
Lieutenant Governor, you were uninformed that the Horry County would be split off at the 2010 census to actually give us a new seat?
Ms. Jenrette, I appreciate the question
Mr.
as
Bauer,
well.
Mr. Bauer, I'll let you
Ken
respond
Ard, the
to that
lieutenant governor of this
specifically,
state, broke the tie to decide whether this district would even be here or it would be down in Berkeley County. So it wasn't even decided. And so I chose to move here because of opportunity. Since then, I've done, I believe it's over 16 real estate deals. I've employed over 100 people in creating a large investment in reopening the Myrtle Beach Speedway. I've also bought a business that was going out of business. You asked the question if you want me to answer it. If not, cut me off and I won't answer. But if you're going to ask the question and then have somebody follow it up.
We're going to take a break. I would remind the audience,
and you
thank
wanted an
you,
answer.
Mr. Bauer.
If you want to cut me off, do it just like you're doing everybody else. You asked a specific question to one person, and if you're not going to let me define the question, then why ask it?
I mean, you pretty much had a full-person debate all night.
I'll give you 15 seconds to wrap it up if you
Never mind.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would remind the audience and the candidates that we did specify that there would be some rounds which would include all the candidates. There would be some. There would be some rounds. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. We'll be back in a moment.
Yeah. The four of them will.
Can you get my mic? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, let me, while we're in a break, we set the parameters for this. We explained this to everyone. We said.
Period.
Let me speak to the audience. We encourage you to be participating, but the more you shout and the more you interrupt, the more you take away from their time. We have, Mr. Wallace, thank you. I'm not keeping a stopwatch on this. We indicated that there would be questions that are specific, and we indicated there would be questions for all participants. And I understand that is not going to satisfy everyone.
We're willing to yield the rest of that.
We will be back in a minute and a half. The next round of questions will be addressed to all of the candidates. In this round, we would welcome brief answers to our questions. Tim, go ahead.
Okay. What would the first piece of legislation you'd like to introduce if you're elected? Dick Withington.
The first piece of legislation that I've got two, we've talked about on your show. The 5% savings bond, U.S. savings bond for all of our senior savers, and also removing the reserve requirements from insurance companies so we can reduce our wind and hail premiums.
Jim Mader.
It's for me.
Wake up, hey!
As your king, I would introduce my first piece of legislation that January 22nd, 2013 would be the first annual No Obama Day. Second piece of legislation would be to force Congress not to touch any excess funds in Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security, and forever in perpetuity, any excess monies would be rebated back to the taxpayers that paid them.
Jay Jordan, the first piece of legislation you'd like to introduce if elected.
I would love to continue the fight on for term limits. If we don't understand that politicians are the problem, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world, but our government has forgotten that and they've led us to the edge of this cliff. We're going to have someone to go to Washington and recognize that government's not the solution, that the people are the solution, not the government.
Chad Prosser.
I would introduce a piece of legislation to suspend the pay for every member of Congress until they pass a balanced budget. I know from being in business, you don't get paid if you don't make money and the business isn't successful. We need to pass a balanced budget now.
Andre Bauer.
I would shorten the session immediately. Congress spends too much time in Washington. Air conditions made it a year-round job. It should be part-time. And every 2 years, they ought to reduce the pay of every congressman by 20%, thereby encouraging them to get out.
Tom Rice.
Balanced budget amendment, and I'm excited. I think there might be a chance to get some real reform done. We got the payroll tax cut expiring. We got the Bush tax cuts expiring. We got the automatic spending cuts and the debt cap agreement from last year. All these things are going to have a big effect on our economy. The public is mad. We might be able to get something done.
Catherine Jenrette.
Well, since all my colleagues in Congress have already gone down all these roads of balanced budgets, which is a long-term goal, I would like something very immediate, and that's a moratorium on gas tax for a year, because that would be more money in your tank of gas, in your gas tank, and it would also mean that produce and products going to market can be cheaper for you to buy on the shelves. It would be immediate relief from this horrible economy we're in.
Randall Wallace.
I would continue to work with the bill that Senator DeMint, Senator Graham, Congressman Scott, and Congressman Mulvaney have been pushing to cut spending to 2008 levels, cap it there, and start working on a balanced budget amendment. It's the cut, cap, and balance pledge that I've already signed, and we need to do desperately in this country to get this financial mess that we're in under control.
Renee Collins.
I would propose to lift the moratorium on drilling so we can start being self-sufficient, stop depending on the Middle East, and get jobs back to the American citizens where we need it.
Are you pro-life, Dick Withington?
Yes, I'm Catholic. I've had a long conversation with Father Pat and also with the administrative people at St. Andrews. However, I'm not willing to execute Catherine or Renee if they should have an abortion.
Jim Mader.
I don't want to die. Yes, I am pro-life.
Mr. Mader.
Jay Jordan.
I'm 100% pro-life. A lot of the problems we have in this country today are because we don't value life. Until we begin valuing life, and that's the way we do it, so I'm 100% pro-life.
Chad Prosser.
Yes, I'm absolutely pro-life. As the father of one adopted child, it's a very personal issue to me, and I think we need to protect life.
Andre Bauer.
I'm pro-life.
Tom Rice.
Absolutely pro-life.
Catherine Jenrette.
It's obvious that I'm pro-life. I have 4 children, and I would have more, but they're very expensive.
Randall Wallace.
I'm pro-life.
And Renee Culler.
I'm pro-life. I also have 4 girls, and I would have had more if I had not been so old.
Next question.
Valerie.
Should illegal immigrants have a chance to be naturalized or be deported? Mr. Withington.
If the choice were one or the other, as a Christian, I would naturalize them. I'd work out some kind of a plan that's humane, and we're all immigrants, and I think there's a way to, I'm for closing the borders. The ones that are here, I'd be a little bit more humane.
Mr. Mader.
For the children that don't even know that they are here illegally, I would work out a plan so they can become naturalized citizens. For those that know they are here illegally, the people that come across the border, kill our citizens, ship them back.
Mr. Jordan.
How can we expect people to appreciate, to respect the law when we reward the people that break it? So I would not support naturalization.
Mr. Prosser.
We cannot provide an incentive for those to break, who are here already to break the law and provide amnesty for them. What we need to focus on is reforming our legal immigration system and then allowing those who come through legally a process by which they can apply for citizenship.
Mr. Bauer.
We need to make it easier for people trying it the legal way. We are doing everything we can to make it so difficult and people doing it the right way. But we already tried amnesty. Ted Kennedy did it years ago. It hadn't worked, and we cannot continue to allow lawbreakers to come into our country.
Mr. Rice.
Illegal means illegal. We need to define the terms under which we're willing to have people come in here legally, but we're not going to stop it unless we close the borders. And then we need to enforce the laws we have. We don't need new laws, but if the federal government's not going to enforce their laws, they need to get out of the way of the states and let them fight the problem.
Ms. Jenrette.
We need to actually put in place an anchor baby law that says if you're born in this country, you better have some parents who are from here naturally. Amen. And not from somewhere else. And also, we need to have a get in the back of the line program. I'm sorry, you came here illegally, you get in the back of the line. We're not going to, reward you for cutting the line or trying to sneak around the line. I worked in the congressional office, and too many times I've seen so many people do it the right way, getting their green card and hiring lawyers at thousands of dollars to become citizens. We have to enforce what we have and make them do it the right way. On the same token, we can't sit there and ignore that 20 million people are here in this country. We need to identify them and read them the Riot Act, allow them to work here, but they don't get the benefits that go along with it.
Mr. Wallace.
We need to take E-Verify and take it national so that you hold employers accountable for what they're doing. This way you take the jobs away, you take the incentive for them to come here away. I also believe that you give ICE the tools they need to implement, immigration and take these illegals out. And I actually also think we need to have some help from the federal government, saying that the local government and police can be trained to deal with this because they're on the ground, they know where they are, they know how to deal with it, and that would do a lot to deter these folks from wanting to come here.
It begins at I and ends at L. If they're illegal, they've broken the law. If you walked into CVS and stole something, you'd be in jail. They need to be deported and out of our country.
We'll discuss other international issues when we return. Stay with us, please. ask you all a question about international issues, and in order to try and make time for everybody, I want to cut this down to 30 seconds and move briskly if we can. Could you just tell us what's the key international issue that interests you and what efforts within your capacity to really do anything about it? And if I can, I'd like to just take it down the line and start with Mr. Withington.
I have written in the newspaper, and I've long felt that the American blank check that we give to the state of Israel is actually harmful to the state of Israel. It's caused them to become, from a little puppy dog, they've become kind of a pit bull. I don't think they treat the Palestinians as well as they should. I think they've brought a lot of their own problems, and there are millions of Israelis who agree with me. There are Israelis who believe that the hard line is hurting them in the long run, so I work on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mader.
The key international issue that I would work on is liberty and freedom. That seems to be lacking greatly in this nation and in this world. And when I'm talking about liberty and freedom, I'm not talking about someone who wants to impose their will and their control on others. I'm talking about the liberty to be able to speak in public, to be able to vote, and to have an opinion without having to be worried about being killed about it. Thank you.
Mr. Jordan.
I think it's very important, first off, that we stand with our friends wherever they are. And Israel is one of those friends. And how can we... Iran is one of the most dangerous countries in the history of the world. If we're not prepared to deal with Iran, certainly I'm not in favor of sending our brave men and women anywhere in the world without knowing first and foremost it's the right thing to do, and being very appreciative of their service and being very careful to do our best to give them to make sure they're the best trained, best prepared. But we've got to stand with our friends, and we can't stand in places we shouldn't be. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Prosser.
For me, it's properly defining our national interests. That's really the fundamental issue. And in looking at that, I believe it's the protection of American lives. That's both American lives here at home and the lives of our men and women who are serving in the military. So when we make decisions about whether to go in to a country, into a conflict, to withdraw troops, as we look now at problems like Syria and other threats that are arising, we need to be very careful about how we narrowly define the national interest of the United States to ensure that we're properly protecting American lives but not overextending ourselves.
Mr. Bauer.
First off, I agree we've got to protect Israel. It's one of the very few friends that is key to security of this country. But we've got to pick and choose where we are. We have troops all over the world, whether it's Africa, Germany, Italy. We can't continue to be the world's policing powers. Europeans should thank us every day that we continue to subsidize their policing force, and I'm tired of it. Also, we can't continue to let the media be anywhere where we have troops on the ground fighting. We can't continue to give our secrets to our opponents.
Mr. Rice.
Because of our unimaginable national debt, we have to closely examine our presence around the world. Clearly, Israel and a few others, we need to be there for them. Our friends, we've got to be there for them. It's important we have a presence. But we need to closely examine our foreign aid, closely examine our military presence around the world. Or we can't afford it anymore. We'll be bankrupt.
Ms. Jenrette.
Since Jefferson administration, we've been in places like Tripoli, we've been in places like Germany, we've been in places like Japan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, where I just served. And no matter where we are, I can guarantee you none of these gentlemen or ladies can tell you what I can tell you but haven't been in uniform. Okay, first of all, our troops abroad and where we send them and what we equip them with and how we take care of them when they get home is one of the most important things I think should be taken care of. And then also, too, we are only in places, Mr. Bauer, where we have vital interest. If we were in places as police calling the world, as you say it, we would be in Sierra Leone. We would be in Rwanda. We would be taking care of people all over the world besides the places we're in.
Mr. Wallace, thank you.
If we bring our troops home
Thank you, Ms. Jenrette.
at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, it won't change a darn thing.
Mr. Wallace, your time is being consumed here.
And then secondly, we need to send some congressmen home tomorrow afternoon at 3:30.
Mr. Wallace.
Protecting our friend Israel is vitally important. They are the equivalent of a supercarrier in the Middle East, which is very volatile. And the main thing we need to do is work to remove Iran, which is the focus of evil in the modern world, from where they sit. The Azeris in that country want to be a part of Greater Azerbaijan. And the Persians were rioting in the street, and this president did nothing about it. We need to put our intelligence on the ground over there and start working to get those people to rise up and overthrow that government, because they are exporting terror around the world, and they need to go, and the world would be a much more peaceful and safer place without the Iranian government.
Thank you. And Ms. Culler, we're running out of time, so Ms. Culler, please. Thank you.
Foreign aid is the biggest problem that I have with our international. We send all of our money, so much of our money rather, over to other countries that want to kill us. And we have our veterans here that have gone and fought wars for them, and they're not being taken care of here. We have people here that need help in America, and we need to clean up and take care of the Americans before we go taking care of everyone else.
Thank you. We will take a final break. We'll be back in a moment. All right, candidates, you're going to have to be swift on this. About 15 seconds for each of you to make your best case. Starting with Mr. Bauer, we're going to work our way out. Mr. Bauer.
My best case for
15 seconds.
I don't understand the question you're asking.
Your last
okay,
comment.
you said we weren't going to have a closing. My closing is, ladies and gentlemen, for 8 years I fought for you in Columbia. When your own Republicans were trying to raise taxes, I ruled out of order over $2 billion. I reduced the size of an agency that was given to me by not only staff, but over $40,000 in rent. I'll go to Washington and do the exact same thing and cut out everywhere I can, get this economy back in shape, and encourage small businesses to want to expand and grow opportunities.
Mr. Rice. Mr. Rice. Mr. Rice.
I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to the live audience for coming out, and the TV audience for taking the time to learn about your choices here. I've got the talent to represent you in Washington. I'm bringing jobs right here, and I'll bring them to the district. I need your support. I need your vote. Thank you very much.
Mr. Prosser.
In order to restore our economy and get our country back on track, we need to send a true fiscal conservative to Washington to challenge the establishment. I have the experience in business to know what to do, and I have the record in public service of having done it. It's time for change in Washington, and I need your help in order to do it.
Ms. Jenrette. Ms. Jenrette.
Oh, is it my turn? Okay.
Yes,
Sorry. This job is very multifaceted, and it can't be taken lightly. I've been a congressional aide, a veteran. I've worked with every department, I think, under the sun in the federal government in those capacities. For every vote I cast and for every dollar I spend, there will be a person, a soldier, an American on the other side of that. And this I will remember. I'm Catherine Jeanneret, and I will hope to earn your vote.
Mr. Jordan.
If we're going to change Washington, we're not going to do it by sending more politicians to Washington. We're going to have to send people that do it for the right reasons. I'm the only candidate who's self-imposed term limits. I'm the candidate in the race that says I won't participate in a congressional retirement program because it's wrong, the retirement program that Congress has. I'm doing it for the right reasons. We need to send someone that has the courage and the conviction to go there to do it what's right, not to build or continue a political career.
Mr. Wallace.
Years ago, Senator Strom Thurmond gave me some advice. If someone's there with a problem, it's your job to help them. I've never forgotten in all the years I've served on the Myrtle Beach City Council, and I won't forget it in Washington, D.C. either. I fought to be on this stage, and I will fight for you every day and every hour that you let me serve you in Washington. Thank you. I'd love to have you vote.
Ms. Culler.
Well, I'm not a Myrtle Beach elitist, I'm not a career politician, and I'm not a career candidate. I'm a normal, everyday person. I've got 4 children. I'm a chemist. I understand the hardships of life, raising a family. I want to go to Washington. I want to go to Congress, and I want to represent you. I understand both sides of that waterway, and that's what you need to have equal representation for everybody. So when you go to the polls, just remember, like red, white, and blue, Renee Culler's there for you.
Mr. Mader.
Go, Jim. I'm running because tonight is a fine example of why we need change in this district and in this country. As your representative, I will make sure that your voice is heard, not by a practiced politician, but somebody who cares about what goes on in this country and what goes on in this district, no matter what somebody else says. Thank you.
Mr. Withington.
The most important thing for you new congressmen is to be effective, and that means having good relationships. I can relate because I'm a veteran. I've got an MBA in finance. I got a degree in economics. I've owned my own business. I worked in corporate America. I've worked in state government. I've lived in 6 states. I'll be able to relate. I'll be effective.
Thank you, all candidates. That's been the fastest 90 minutes in television. On behalf of all of our sponsors, the Chamber, the Business Alliance, the local television stations, the Wall Street Journal for allowing us to have Valerie Borline, thank you for being with us. The primary is June 12th. Vote. Thank you.
Stage, we need a camera shot. Stage, we need a camera shot. We're 30 away.
More slack, please.
Testing, testing.
John, why don't you sit here? Bill, why don't you sit here? I'm going to sit here. And it's just going to be the three of us for this. I need more slack. Wait.
I'm unplugging mine now.
30 seconds.
Hey, you're cameraing me. Okay.
Someone please get on headset on stage.
Again, I am on mic 2. John's on W1.
We need a single shot of Tim. Stand by.
Vic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a special edition of Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis. Your voice, your vote. A review of the Democratic and Republican debates for the 7th Congressional District.
Bill Pickle, the chairman of the Florence County Republican Party. I'm going to sit down for a second. I think we came under fire as a media up there a little bit as well. And I got to say, it was just a great audience, a lively audience out there, everybody. I want to start off and just get some first impressions of the debate. From the two of you, John, you really representing the Grand Strand, Bill, you representing the PD. Let's start off with you, John. From what you heard from the candidates tonight, what did you think?
Well, I think they all have basically the same idea because it was pretty redundant in a lot of the answers that they were given. But the excitement was here. There's no question about it. Those who are not watching it on television, I'm sure they got some phone calls and turned it on with about 30 minutes to go in the program. But as far as the answers that were given, I would have loved to have the opportunity to see some of the other candidates, the other 5 candidates, because they were right. They deserve to have the opportunity to have more questions asked to them. I know that it's always concentrating on the 4 leaders, but if you're going to have them on stage, then give them the opportunity to voice their opinion also.
I think one of the difficulties faced, obviously, and it's one of the unique things about this race, is you have 9 Republican candidates vying for that one seat. Bill, in the PD, do you feel that you were adequately represented up here tonight?
Oh, yeah. I think we've got several candidates here that are well-bred, well-ready to serve the entire region. And, I think that's important that everybody understands that we are one region. It may be the Grand Strand, it may be the Low Country, it may be the PD, but all of us are part of the great PD region. And so we need someone that can go from the north to the south to the east and west of this big region and represent everybody. And there's several of those guys and ladies that are able and willing to do that. I really believe that.
I tell you, Bill, you're right. It puts us all in the same boat. I'm just excited to see us have a district that does not include the south part of our state, like the Charleston area that's included in it.
Oh, yeah. If Charleston would have been part of this, all of us would have been the stepchild, again, like y'all have been for a long time with him in the first. I mean, it's just obvious.
Charles Bierbauer's joined us. He was the moderator. I think Charles, maybe he deserves some kind of commendation for handling things tonight.
At least a free week at the beach.
Yeah, well, you work on that, Mayor Rhodes. What did you think, Charles?
Well, you have to remember what Tip O'Neill used to say about Tip being the Speaker of the House, that politics is not beanbag. So we didn't play any beanbag up here tonight. And I think that people understand that these are combative individuals, and in fact what you want to send to Congress is someone who's going to be combative on behalf of the district. You can't be milquetoast in this business. It was good. It was an interesting exchange. Naturally, with 9 people in 90 minutes, that's not enough to get as deeply as we'd like to, and so it's incumbent upon the voters to find out more about the candidates that really interested them here tonight.
There was definitely, I think you bring up a good point, there was a lot of passion on the stage tonight.
A lot of passion, absolutely.
And that's what we're looking for, because we need a candidate that's in Washington that's not going to be passive, that's going to be aggressive, and that's not going to be afraid to cast a vote, worried about the vote he's going to get back here to keep him in office. He's got to be there. He's got to represent the people and do what is needed for these people, and not just be somebody that's going to be a fence rider.
That's right, Tim. There was a lot of passion, but I believe that that's what you're seeing all over the country. I mean, you could tell these people were upset about the issues. They were upset about wanting to know answers, and they wanted to make sure they had a chance to hear those answers and see someone willing to do something.
You did hear a lot from the audience tonight, not just about
Absolutely.
about people not having enough time, but I know I took a couple notes here. Notice there were boos from the audience when it came down to military cuts, and that seems to be something across the board for the Republican Party.
When Mr. Whittington answered the question, he was eaten alive.
Oh yeah. You know, if you're you don't mess with military. You know, you just don't do that. I mean, that's what this country was founded on. You know, it's the military that got us our freedom. It's the military that's helped us keep our freedom. It's the military that's going to continue helping our freedom. And when you start talking about messing with the military, you're going to hurt some people in South Carolina.
Now, one of the issues that faces both the Grand Strand and the PD, and I want to ask this since we have both of you gentlemen up here, when we talk about the PD and Grand Strand, and one issue that might unite us all, I think it would be I-73. For or against it, it's one thing that I think both sides want. And I like the fact that the questioning, and Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, but it went a little bit deeper than I've heard it put before, that we were really asking for specifics. How would you pay for this? And we asked about the earmarks as well.
Well, the earmark question is a tricky one, because earmarks are now a bad word in Washington, and yet those are the kinds of things that provide very specific results in the districts in which the members of Congress are engaged and interested. Earmarks have brought a lot of good things to South Carolina, as well as other states, but you can't raise that subject in Washington in the current environment. Will they come back? They may come back in some other form. But whomever you send to Washington from this district, and really representing all of South Carolina, has got to go up and be a fighter. Has got to be the kind of person who can deliver for the state. And that may mean at some point bucking certain trends and possibly even bucking the party.
I don't see us getting any financial aid from Washington. They can't take care of the roads we have right now that need to be upgraded. We need to look at, okay, how do we finance it? If you remember Jacksonville, down through there used to be toll roads. There were toll roads for probably about 25 years. They're gone now. The tolls are up. So let's go ahead and build the road, put some tolls on it, and look at down the road to get it paid for. I mean, think about it. We're the only major resort in America that does not have an interstate leading to it. And I'm going to tell you right now, when we look at what the new studies come out, and it's going to take 19 hours to evacuate the Grand Strand, we need help. Not only just in jobs, we need help in getting people in and out of this community.
There's a broader issue, Tim, if I might, and that is South Carolina's delegation and even its legislature has to be mindful that you can't turn down federal money on one hand and ask for it on the other hand. There's an inconsistency in this state about how it deals with the federal government.
Yeah. Tim, you know, on 73, a lot of people don't understand that's something that's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to have the businesses come in overnight. It's going to take years for that to develop. Years. But it's never going to develop if you don't start. And we need that now. You know, one of the major things, you know, you're talking about earmarks. You know, one of the things that the federal government's job is infrastructure. That's one of those things that they're supposed to help with. And whether it be the ports in Georgetown or Charleston or 73, those are issues the federal government need to be involved in with the military protection of our country and all those others. And when 73 comes through, everybody says, well, it's just for the tourists in Myrtle Beach. It's not. You know, all along through there, that's going to give us another corridor for transportation. That's going to give us property that we can put distribution centers, manufacturing companies, but it will not happen overnight. And I think that's what people are looking at. They're wanting instant salvation, and it's not going to happen.
Bill, and this is really going to be one of the last questions, because I just want to know about Grand Strand versus PD. Is this race going to come down to people in the PD voting for the PD candidate? Or do you think it's going to come down to embracing a Grand Strand candidate as well as a PD candidate?
All right, I'll be, one thing I'm honest. I'll give you the answer, okay? I don't think that there's going to be three people in this race after tonight. I really believe that. I think you're going to have Andre Byer, Tom Rice, and possibly Jay Jordan. And how those votes go is going to depend on who gets in that primary victory circle. There's going to be two people in a runoff, and it's going to be between Tom Price and Jay Jordan, and how that goes is going to be how the race goes. I think it's going to be too close to call because the top leader right now is at 35% undecided.
Quickly, Mayor, you want to make a prediction?
Well, I hate to say it, but we really want to make sure that we have somebody that's going to represent the PD and the coastal region. And the last time we had someone that really did something for this community in the PD was John Generette. That was the last congressman we've had that really got things done in our community. So what we're looking at, I think you got to say that Mr. Jordan is a sleeper. He's done very well in the two debates, and is someone that you got to look out for. You got Tom Rice and Andre Bauer that are front leaders right now. I predict that if Mr. Jordan does not win this congressional race, that you're going to see him somewhere in the state. And I would not be surprised if you don't see him being the protege and taking the successor of Mr. Senator Hugh Leatherman.
Before we go to break, I just want to ask Charles, who has covered many campaigns throughout his career, there's no way, do you think, that Tuesday is going to decide this? It's probably going to go to a runoff.
Oh, it's probably going to go to a runoff and may go to a runoff on both parties. A little better chance on the Democratic side, but with 9, it's simply going to break down. And the point you made about so many, a third perhaps, still being undecided. Some may have decided tonight. Some may have changed their view tonight. Some may be more undecided than they were coming into. But that's why this is a very important election. This is the first shot that this district has at deciding who its member of Congress is going to be. And we all know that incumbency has its advantage. So whoever gets that first step in there could be representing the PD and the Grand Strand for many years.
Charles Bierbauer, thanks for coming down and moderating this. We forgot to tell you to wear Kevlar. Next time you come down, you might want to bring a vest with you. Mayor Rhodes, Bill Pickle, thank you for being with me. We're going to come back in just a minute. We're going to talk with the head of the Myrtle Beach. We're going to talk with him, wrong camera. We're going to talk with the head of the Myrtle Beach Tea Party, and then a little bit later, we're going to hear from the Democrats. We will be right back. Welcome back to this special edition of Carolina This Week. We are a debate edition of Carolina This Week. The Republican debate just took place here Thursday night. We're in the Myrtle Beach Auditorium live. Joe Dugan's joining me from the Myrtle Beach Tea Party. Joe, I think you have to agree with me. This was an entertaining debate.
It was very entertaining and very informative, although I think some things were left out that are really important.
You know, and that's one thing I know in framing the debate, and I didn't choose who got to talk and who didn't get to talk. I want to point that out real quick. But I know that it was tough because we knew that we had 9 candidates, and which issues can you leave in, which issues can you leave out? Based on what you heard up here today, are you satisfied with the candidates?
Well, I'm satisfied with a couple of the candidates. I didn't see the passion that I feel is necessary in a congressman with the crisis that this country is in all of the candidates. I saw that in a couple. And we are in such deep trouble as a country, both fiscally and with our culture. One of the things that I wanted to hear tonight that I did not hear was a feeling from the candidates about political correctness and how much that has destroyed our culture. And I would have liked to have heard that question.
One of the reasons I wanted to have you on this debate wrap-up show is because in the presidential election, you all got behind Newt Gingrich in South Carolina. When I say you all, I mean the grassroots Tea Party organizations. Lo and behold, Newt Gingrich got the nomination. Back in 2010, when we were picking a 1st Congressional District candidate and congressman, you all got behind Tim Scott. Lo and behold, Tim Scott won. What do you think about the candidates? Are you all getting around any one candidate this time around?
Not just yet, Tim. I heard something from Catherine Jenrette tonight that really impressed me when she quoted the Constitution and she enumerated the powers that are preserved for the federal government. All the other powers are given to the states, and we need to take back the state sovereignty and get the federal government out of our business.
And that's something that I know that you all are going to be looking for, and we'll find out if you get behind a candidate. You're running out of time, but I guess there will be a runoff as well, as that's what Charles Bierbauer and a lot of us are predicting. But Joe Dugan with the Myrtle Beach Tea Party, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure.
Stay with us. We're going to be right back. We're going to hear from the Democrats when we come back. Just double check. I know everybody can. Double check with Robbie and see if he left my intro in. If he did, we'll just go from the block. Okay, then just do that, and we should have cut it off at the end where I need to come out. Yes. So just. Thank you. No. No, we're good for like 10 minutes. Can you ask your headset how it's looking? How it's looking? Yeah. It's a little rough at first. Welcome back to this debate edition of Carolina This Week. We're going to jump back in time a little bit now to Tuesday night in the Democratic debate. Joining me now are Sally Howard, Party Chair Doris Hickman, and Pam Heller. Thank you, ladies, for talking with me about the debate.
Thank you.
Now, just to remind people, we have Gloria Tanubu, Preston Britton, Parnell Diggs, and Harry Pavelak all running for the seat. You all sat through the debate with me. What did you think?
Well, first, it was a very professional debate, and we were, pleased to be here, and hope there were lots of viewers that watched it as well. But they were excellent questions, and I thought our candidates all handled them very well, and it was a good debate.
We talked about just about every issue we could touch on, and believe me, that hour went by very quickly. We had to throw out more questions, I believe, than we asked. I want to talk about some of the issues real quick and how you thought the candidates handled themselves on the issues. First off, the ones affecting us here in the Grand Strand. I'll ask this to you, Ms. Hickman. I-73, did you like what you heard from the candidates about I-73?
I did. I thought they were very comprehensive in their responses to the questions that were asked of them. I thought they highlighted the importance of I-73, jobs being the major emphasis, being emphasized, and I thought they all did a good job with that question.
And jobs and economic policy, would you say that that's one of the bigger things driving this election, Pam?
I absolutely do. It may not be driving what they're going to be able to accomplish when they get to Washington, but it certainly is driving the voters in how they're analyzing the candidates.
Mm-hmm. Preston Britton, let's just talk about some of the individuals real quick. Preston Britton, he is an attorney, and I know that he is the youngest Democrat running, and he's tied for the youngest candidate in the running. What's the impression of Preston Britton? Is he a rising star in the Horry County Democratic Party?
We would hope to say so. He is looking well for us. He has a good basic understanding of the problems and the issues that we are facing. He communicates well what he should about the party, and he is a person that is very inclusive in terms of all people having equal access to the vote.
I'd like to add into that, I think one of Preston's strongholds is he's a problem solver. And I think there are enough problems in Washington that we, in fact, need not so much that much experience. We need someone that can go and take on those problems, and I see Preston as a real problem solver.
Gloria Tanubu, newcomer really to, I think, well, at least I'd never heard of her before this race, but she's an economist. She teaches at CCU. She's an economist, and we just said that one of the bigger issues facing us right now is the economy. What do you think of Ms. Tanubu?
I think she's very smart, and I think she's extremely well spoken. I'm just not sure that people relate to her as much, since she's not as much of a local person.
And that was one of the questions that I asked her during the debate. Was about, she served in Georgia and now she's back here. But I remember in my personal discussions with her, she was raised in Brook Green Garden, and she does have ties here to the Grand Strand, and she says also to the PD. She had some relatives from the PD, I believe.
Well, I think that all of the candidates are, even with her credentials and everything, I think all of the candidates are zeroing in on the economy. They know the importance of the economy. They know how it affects negatively and positively, so that's why they're in this race, to make a difference.
I want to hit all the candidates while we're up here. Parnell Diggs, who is blind, head of the National Federation of the Blind in South Carolina, local attorney, and as we heard him up on the stage, very well spoken. He told me afterward that he kind of has a preacher's oratory up there. What do you think of Mr. Diggs? And he also had some vocal support from the audience, I think a lot of people heard.
He is probably the most sincere person I've ever seen in politics. It's heartwarming to hear, and I've heard him speak many times. I think he really believes everything he says.
I too. I love Parnell, and I think as he loves to say, he's from the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, and I like that. I don't feel that he's had the resources to compete on the level playing field that it takes to run a campaign and then look forward past this campaign, what it's going to take to win a general election. And that's where I'd like to go next, is I think we can win the 7th congressional district. This is historic. We have a first-time brand new congressional district here that I've never seen in my lifetime. I've changed districts and been in a new one, but I've never been in a brand new one that no one has served. And I feel that we've got to look at who can come out of this primary and beat a Republican. And in order for a Democrat to win in Horry County or in South Carolina, they've got to attract some Republican votes. Yes. And I feel Preston Britton can do that.
Harry Pavelak, like I said, I want to hit everybody, but Harry Pavelak, a name known to many people down here on the Grand Strand, he spent a lot of his energy tonight talking to people in the PD, talking to people in Bennettsville, saying that he could bring jobs back here.
With President Romney. Enough said.
Let's go back to what we were just talking about before that, and about a Democrat winning the 7th Congressional District. One of the questions that we had to leave because of time tonight was, I wanted to know, can a Democrat win the district with so much Republican money in the race and a lot of Republican support that we've seen in polls that have been released from 7th Congressional District voters on the Grand Strand and in the PD? What do you think? How's it going to work?
I really think we can. I think to get organized with the grassroots effort. I realize that money is very important, but actually getting the people to the polls and to participate and have a full understanding of the importance and how that vote would impact on their lives, I think people are going to come out.
I also think if we can reach the youth, if we can really do a good get out the vote effort with young voters, because I've looked at the numbers from who voted in the 2008 primaries among youth voters in the Democratic group in South Carolina, and it was phenomenal compared to 2010 when it was really low. And I think we just need a really strong...
Will you be able, though, to raise the money needed to combat the money that we're going to see raised on the Republican side?
I think we will have national help. And the other, go back to what you say about all the money in the Republican races right now, that's 9 races and only one's going to win. So there are going to be 8 candidates and 8 candidates' campaigns and supporters that may not want to go that way. And I think if we offer an alternative, a candidate that some of those other campaigns will look at, that we can take it. Yeah. I'm banking on it.
And we certainly are not complacent as far as that. We may not be, but we may not have as much money, but I think we have the boots on the ground and the enthusiasm to do it. That, you know, the Republicans are very complacent in this area.
By the end of June, we'll know who the nominee is, and we'll find out what happens in November.
Oh, yes, and we'll rally around that person. Yes.
2 very different races between the Republicans and the Democrats. We'll find out who the nominees are going to be by month's end. I want to thank you for joining us tonight for what was a very lively debate. Remember, it's kind of like a job interview, and I hope you picked your right candidate. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Carolina This Week. Have a great week.